energy healing, and the impact it can have for all of us, especially as it really, well, I say especially, but it really has so much impact for all different people. Most specifically, what I had on heart in bringing this one forward today was mental awareness and anxiety and things that we can often go through and have show up for us throughout life. Hey, Jairus, thanks for
Hey,
joining.
Jairus.
So, on that happy note, and hello, Dorothy.
Hi,
Thanks for
Dorothy.
joining us. All right, so we're talking emotional cellular healing, energy healing, and the impact on our life. So, to give perspective, for me, and looking back to the last couple of years for me, not the last couple, I would say my journey of healing, of course, anyone who's listened to me has started about 8 years ago, really has been my pivot as it relates to the emotional code, emotional cellular healing, and emotional healing. That journey started, I'm horrible with timelines, maybe 3.5-ish years ago. And I started with something called the emotion code. And that is a dynamic of releasing past emotions from body cellular level. And then speeding forward, I had the gracious opportunity to meet Dr. Christy, and she's just taken my knowledge exponentially from a cellular emotional perspective and energy healing perspective to a whole nother level. And guys, I can tell you from my experience as someone who, as an example, would have had a really hard time sitting here with no emotions behind it in the past. Emotional cellular healing is beautiful in letting the physiological sides of the past go. So, on that note, Christy, what do you have to add so far?
You said it all beautifully. I mean, it's become, I mean, I've done this work for a long time now, and I really just feel like I've hit a really good stride with it. Oh, thank you, Dorothy. Um, I feel like I've just had like a really good stride with it in the last year or so, just by learning different techniques and developing more confidence and trust in the process. And
Right.
so the more that we do things, the more that we see results, and it's just been kind of a beautiful journey for me as well, just as a practitioner working with healing arts. Um, so I mean, so yeah, it's I hear so many different things from patients when we work together on this sort of stuff. Um, within the emotional work that we do, we've heard things like, oh, this is like years of therapy in one session,
Yeah.
or other things like, I feel like, 100 pounds lighter. What did you do? And it's like, I didn't do anything, but just the concept of letting go of all those things that are like physically and metaphorically speaking, weighing us down in our bodies. It sometimes feels like we're letting go of bunches of things, physically speaking.
Yeah.
Um, even in terms of weight loss, I've seen that before as well, that like I think we talked about this just kind of recently, that letting go some of the emotional stuff that can it can impede us from achieving different goals that we have, one of which could be weight loss, one of which could be business goals, like all these things, that stuff has happened in our lives and in years ago when we were a child. It all still stays in our body and stays in our cells in some capacity, and until we release it, it can be affecting us in ways we don't even recognize.
Yeah. Okay, so backing all the way up, you and I know this work, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone does watching. So I think let's start by breaking it down for any of our viewers. And let's start by breaking down, let's first talk about cellular healing at the cellular level. Can you explain to anyone watching what that means, how it works, why it helps?
I will try my best. It's a lot of this is very intangible
Mhm.
stuff to just try and describe. So we're trying to put tangible concepts around the intangible. But one of the books that we've referenced before is Your Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the author because I can never pronounce his name. I believe it's Bessel van der Kolk.
He's
Um,
fantastic. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant book. I've read it years ago, and I really need to read it again, quite honestly. But he just goes into the concepts of how anything that's ever happened in our lives, literally our body recognizes it and our body knows it. It's stored somewhere. Stuff that's even happened that was from technically preconception, right? I mean, energetically speaking, before you were even conceived, the energies that were happening in your parents' lives influence the being that you were going to become. I know this all gets really crazy and really weird, but I find things like this very frequently when I work with patients and I test them on what level, on what timeline did this first become an issue for you, the person that's sitting in front of me. And sometimes we can take it back to preconception days. We can take it back to between conception and birth. So there's so many different influences that are happening at times that we don't even know.
Yeah.
I totally forgot the question. I got on a tangent.
Let's stay on that for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
So breaking it down as an example, okay? Let's say, for example, when you're 5 years old, and at 5 years old, I don't know, let's say that someone slammed a door behind you and it shocked you. And that feeling that you feel all through your body, the tingling all through your body, literally that tingling is leaving scars, to Dr. Christy's point, and the book, The Body Leaves the Score. It's leaving scars on your cells. So then let's say speeding forward to, I don't know, 21 years old, and something happens that gives you that same shock of someone slammed the door behind you. Those cells from 5 years old immediately say, oh, on guard, because I remember this happened when I was 5. And that can be from the way someone spoke to us, or an experience, or whatever it is. And those minute things build time over time over time. Again, breaking it down further, again, another example. My example I'll use specifically. My very first hit, cellular, emotional wise, of talking in front of groups, it set a cellular level scar, right? And then it happened again in 7th grade. And then it happened again. And year over year it built, because I kept building that fear and that anxiousness, and the cellular physiological signs, tingling, heart palpitations, sweating, palms sweaty. And until you start breaking that down and letting the cells go and getting them back to a normal physiological state of balance, that's when we can start integrating the new experience. Is that right? Did I sum that up?
Okay. Perfectly. There's a couple other examples that I can kind of give. So one of which,
on that for 1 second though,
mm-hmm.
As it relates to the breaking down. So we've built this thing up, right? The scars up. How does it work, to your point? How do we then break it down? Like, how do you take that experience and actually get the cells back to a normal state?
Right. So there's a couple of different things that I use. The first point that I want to make, though, is all what you just described is completely unconscious. Like, until we do enough work to really dig it out and then bring it back to bring that to our conscious awareness, most, if not all of that, is not even in our conscious awareness. So a couple of the examples I'll give, and then I'll answer the question on how we can break that down and get through that, is if your body has an injury, like a physical, actual injury to it. There's a system I use called injury recall technique, and our body goes through a very specific series of events when we experience a trauma, whether physically or emotionally speaking. And in that trauma response, if you just look at this physiologically speaking, right, you hurt yourself. Your shoulders kind of do this, your ankles kind of come up and do this. It's like, it's a normal shock and trauma response. And essentially what you do to reverse that process in the physical traumas that I'm referring to, you take the body and you remind the body of where the trauma was. So you either touch over the area, or the patient remembers how it happened, or they go back to that place and remember the worst pain, or whatever. There's different things that we do. And then we reverse the bodily response that came as a result of those traumas. And so you're putting the body back in the situation where the trauma occurred, albeit briefly, just to get the body back in that state, and then you clear it. The other example that I'm going to give, and then I'll completely answer the question, is if anybody watching has ever heard of the Pavlov's dog, like conditioning stuff. So if you haven't, I'll just remind everybody, there's these dogs, they were running this experiment, they rang a bell and they showed them a steak. And the dogs they started salivating every time they saw the steak. And over again, the researchers would ring a bell, they'd see the steak, they'd salivate and continue on. And after a while, they stopped showing them the steak and only rang the bell, and only to the bell they would start to salivate because they made the connection. They conditioned them to recognize bell meant food, so therefore we're going to salivate at the sound of the bell even when there's no food present. Human beings, here's the thing though, the dogs after a while got the message that, well, there's no food coming anymore, so we're going to stop salivating. Eventually they unconditioned themselves. Human beings aren't that smart. Yeah. Human beings, we don't uncondition ourselves unless we try, unless there's a lot of effort put into it. And so I kind of liken the work that this kind of is as to unconditioning crap from our unconscious, subconscious beliefs from years or even decades ago, right?
Yep. Yep.
So for me, in order to do this with people, is I use muscle testing. There's dozens of other methods and modalities out there that can be used to access energies and emotions. But I use muscle testing, and I correlate different findings with certain emotions, with different meridians, and then go through and just essentially ask the body, like, what's the priority here? Or sometimes people come in with a very specific situation or something that they're trying to get over. Like, I have a fear of going on live videos. Okay, let's figure that out. Okay, let's go through fear. And then we ask the person, like, where do you think this is coming from? What's the hardest part of that for you? Bring it back through the body when the first time that may have happened. And the person may not know the first time that happened. Like I said, like the first time that happened could have been at birth and they didn't know. You'd be surprised how many crazy things come up with people that I have no idea how it relates. But then as soon as I bring it up, okay, how can you relate fear? What was going on at the time when your mom was pregnant with you? And their eyes get wide and they go, okay, I don't think I ever told you that, but my mom almost had an abortion with me. Yeah. And like my body like just feels everything on that level because I recognize their body knew that coming into the world might not have been safe. They were feeling fear at that moment, even before they were born. Right. And those sorts of little things can stay with you your whole life until we pull them out and then retrain the body to let go of that conditioning piece.
So, okay, when you pull them out, is that a energy modality? Is it? Yes. Well, of course, because energy, and again, for anyone watching, if you're not familiar with energy work, all of our bodies are vibrations, right? It's science. Science says we're all moving, energetic beings. So if you connect, and we're all connected. So using energy, is that what I'm hearing? Using energy, then you pull that from the cellular function.
Yes, there's so many different methods to do it. And it just personally for me, when I'm working with someone, it depends on what their body needs at that particular time, of course. But I'll sometimes connect their physical body in with different connections. And so, like, for instance, I am still a chiropractor, even though I do a lot of weird or other fun stuff now. I'll sometimes adjust certain levels in their spine while they think of a certain memory or while they hold on to certain thoughts. Mm-hmm. And coupling that energy with the emotion and the physical piece hits it on a different level in their nervous system so that they can let go of things easier and more permanently.
Got it. Christy, when we're talking about, and we have a couple folks joining us. Hi, Robin. Rob. So good to see you. Mohammed, thank you for joining us. Welcome. Okay, so when someone, and I know from my experience, but again, sharing with our viewers, when someone is doing cellular emotional work, again, all the benefits, anywhere from alleviating anxiousness to fear to letting go of past stories that we, to your point, unconsciously built throughout the years. What does that path look like? And I'm sure it's different for everybody, but timeline wise, can you give perspective on average, like what it takes to really navigate the care of this type of work?
Honestly, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on how much trauma someone's actually endured in their life, how open they are and willing to release it, to dig through and get through the messy to actually achieve the healing. Mm-hmm. And then it also just depends on what they are unconsciously ready to let go of. Okay. Because I find a lot of times things only come up when they're ready to. If somebody's not ready to let go of something, unconsciously speaking, it's not going to come up. We won't be able to clear it out of their nervous system because things sometimes I find have to come out in layers in order for them to have a real profound effect and not hurt the person. I mean, because just being honest, quite frankly, a lot of these stories and a lot of these things that we've built up in our systems over the years serve us in some way. And if you take that out of their system before they're ready, you can have some potentially negative impacts.
Yeah. I think that that's a really good point. And we can use me as a test dummy or example from my experience of working with you on this particular piece is we've been working together for now a year and a half, approximately, roundabout.
That's it.
Just a little bit of time. And there are things that come out now that I would have said that were cleared a long time ago, but you're right. It's really come in layers. And I can definitely attest to when it shows up and when it's ready, it feels like it's ready to let that one go. So it's interesting. Okay. So for someone not familiar with healing at the cellular level, the body keeps the score. Before we talk more on the energy side of things, what are some starter points that you recommend to anyone interested in, number one, determining if this is a route that's right for them, but also what the starter point would be of healing? And I'm going to throw one more in there is, and this may be first for me, is vetting out who to work with. Because I think that finding the right practitioner, and no matter what modality that you're looking at, is really critical, so that you can make sure that they're going to meet your care. And we'll come back to that one on the energy side, because I have some more points on that I want to talk about. But I'll let you answer that before I give you more to ponder. Hi, Jeanette. Thanks for joining us.
So can you repeat the first couple questions, because you had several in there, so I want to make sure I remember them all.
Starting point for anyone watching who's interested in really healing at the cellular level, what steps do you recommend that they get started with?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I mean, when people usually come into my office, they usually come in with a chief complaint, right? Whether that, I'm a chiropractor, so people sometimes come in with back pain, they come in with headaches or this or that. And I take a very deep, profound history where I ask all sorts of questions, from the musculoskeletal level, all the way through diet, all the way through, tell me what your mother's pregnancy was like with you. Tell me how was life growing up, siblings, what was your favorite subject in school? Like, I get their entire picture of who they are as a human being. And many people don't necessarily recognize how that all impacts, okay, I just came in with back pain. But everyone is different. And as a starting point, starting to make connections between why I have this back pain, right? So for instance, and sometimes back pain is just back pain. Sometimes it's just flat out a structural thing, and any old chiropractor down the street will be able to fix it in a few visits and it'll be great. More often than not, I tend to find that there are layers, there are there's multi-dimensions to any complaint. So there could be nutritional deficiencies or dehydration that impact it, or financial stress, or relationship stress, or whatever might have happened when they were 6 years old, with a bully at school. Like, there's no telling what could be driving their current complaint. And so as far as the starting point is concerned, I always just recommend look within and ask yourself some of those hard questions. Like, okay, why we're just talking about back pain. Why does my back hurt? Okay, well, let's back it up. How did it start? When did it start? Did I have an injury to it? Did I literally do something specific and it started hurting? That lends itself to being more of a structural issue, but not entirely, because how many times have you picked your kid up? Or how many times have you unloaded the dishwasher and it never went out before? Why this time? Why now? We could argue points that, okay, well, it was building over this time, or it was weak and vulnerable because of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different ways to kind of look at it. And so I just often find, as far as the starting point is concerned, dig into whatever you might be dealing with. And if you've got zero complaints and you feel like everything is beautifully and perfect in your life, then great, you're ahead of me. But that's where I usually recommend starting, is just kind of looking within and into all those different angles of things.
Christy, yes to everything you mentioned. And I definitely, looking back to my history, from being my doctor, that I had literally back pains for decades that I had chiropractors tell me it will never get better. You will always be in for adjustments. And when I met you and started really pulling back the cellular emotional side of things, I get rare back pain, like, and it's amazing because I'm running again. Like, there's so much thriving in life when you break through all the shit and the garbage that's sitting in your cells that people aren't aware of.
Right.
And that's where I say what the starting point is. If you feel like garbage day over day and something doesn't feel right and you're again, this is not doctor answer, but this is my answer. You're feeling like garbage every day. You're fatigued, your energy depleted. Guys, fact of the matter is, again, I'm passionate about people who are struggling with mental health and anxiety and depression. And if you're in that state, this may be a type of healing to look at, to really get to the core root of why that's happening and why you're feeling that way. Because I commit to you that if you're feeling depleted and fatigued and feeling just overall not good day in and day out, there's something more that can be uncovered. And from someone who's walked the path, it may look way differently than what you think. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form minimizing any type of other medicine, but this is definitely a route to look into in addition to whatever else you're working in. You're trying to do. And if it's a consistent pattern, that to me is a starting point. It's a sign. It's a ding, ding, ding. We got to check something out here and see what's going on.
Yeah. So. For me, the one thing I'll add to that is hopefully you'd be surprised, but like, I think people would be surprised to know how many times people come in and they show me all their blood work. They show me all this and all that. And they say, every doctor I've ever been to says everything's normal.
Yeah.
And they come in, like you said, still feeling like garbage. And that's not normal. If you don't feel like you want to feel, if you don't have that sense of vitality and the energy, you have pain, you have whatever doesn't feel right in your body, trust yourself that something's off, and there's always a reason for it.
Yeah. Well, and and some of our viewers may know, I mean, I was told for over a year that everything was good and everything was in my head when I had cancer, and my cancer went undiagnosed while I was feeling lousy. So, yeah, Kelly, I agree with that. Keep digging, find freedom.
Yes, the root cause.
Kelly, I agree with that. Like, sometimes we just need to go a little bit deeper. And I want to stay on that for a minute. Is sometimes the deeper in the root causes some messy. It's not always easy.
It causes some processing time.
Guys, I don't love that word. That would be a better word. But anyway, okay. So cellular, emotional. Is there any other tips, suggestions, benefits that you want to mention to our viewers before we switch over to the other half of the topic of energy?
I mean, I think we covered all of the benefits. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've got a couple more stories if you think people would resonate.
I think, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, so I actually had a patient this week. This was so beautiful. This is a brand new patient. She actually came in because she does not want to have another C-section. She's had 2 C-sections already, and she's like 10 weeks pregnant with her third. And her first story, there's so many traumas throughout that delivery story. But then what happened the second time, she was trying for a VBAC at that second time, and she literally was put in the exact same hospital room as her first experience. And like, I heard that and I got tingly and just was like, oh man, like I could feel like what that does to someone's nervous system, consciously and subconsciously. Right. And so she told me the story. She says, yeah, it ended up in the same way. And she was knocked out, and then she woke up and she didn't know where her baby was. And it was just like, there's so many layers of stuff to uncover there for her to be able to even deliver this time, because right now she consciously and subconsciously feels like her body's not cut out for it. And stacking that story, because she's had so many doctors now tell her too, like, because she's shopped around like 3 or 4 different practices asking, will you attempt a VBAC for me? And they've told her, no, we don't think your body's capable of doing it. And that's incredibly disempowering to tell a woman, sorry, you can't deliver vaginally because of what's happened before. And she finally just found a practice that said, yeah, we've listened to your story. We've listened to the history. We find no reason that you can't try this. And so sometimes it's just about finding, like to your other point and your other question, is finding the right practitioner. Just don't give up until you're satisfied with an answer. Don't give up until you're satisfied with finding someone that you feel like you resonate with and you trust. and that will listen to you and not dismiss anything that you're saying.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And on that, because it bleeds into the energy side of things, I really feel, especially when we're working with energy, the person that we connect with and how their energy is really important.
Yep.
For me,
Yes.
I saw someone once who was very scattered and did some energy work, and I literally walked out feeling scattered. So I think that it's, again, key that we're just dialing into who that person is and that they have what we need. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks.
Trust yourself. Hi, Emily. Thank you for joining us. Okay. The other fun half of the conversation is energy healing. And I'm so excited to bring this conversation to life in light of us going to Theta Healing a couple weeks back and now being certified practitioners in Theta Healing. And I know this is something you've done for so long.
I have not done Theta for so long. Theta is brand new to me too.
True. But also just the newness of learning energy healing, Christy, and just from not only a practitioner level, but also just I know it from a client level, and now seeing different sides of even integrating Theta with some of my clients. It's just given me a whole different dynamic perspective of the impact energy healing has on people and can have on people when someone is aware and open to its benefits.
Yeah.
So I thought we could just give first, because again, we're aware of what energy healing is and what it does, but in your terms, can you kind of explain to everyone what energy healing is?
Sure. Once again, trying to tangibly describe the intangible. So to me, energy healing is about accessing the universal energy, the universal electrical nature that comes from the earth, that comes from the universe, that comes from a source that's indescribable, whether you believe in a religion or anything along those lines. There is just an energy that's around us. So this goes back in scientific terms as far as like quantum physics is what we're kind of referring to. Yep. And everything has energy to it. This chair that I'm sitting in, this desk that I'm sitting at, like every piece of matter in our environment has an energetic frequency to it. It's measurable. And we can vibrate at a high level of frequency or we can vibrate at a low one. And the more that we work on ourselves to channel the energy from other sources that are independent of us, the higher we can raise our own vibration. And there's people that, focus on theta healing, that focus on other things and different modalities within the energy work. That's our primary goal is just essentially to raise the vibration of who we're working with and allow healing to occur at a better, deeper level that they can, the body always does the healing. Like people will always, say things like, oh, you've changed my life. You've done this, you helped me so much. I always say, yes, thank you. But your body did it.
Right.
Like I just helped guide it there. I helped remove obstacles that were in the way. And so that to me is what energy is just removing those blockages of healing.
Yeah.
Through different movement of the energies that we can feel.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for that beautiful description, Dr. Christy.
I'd love your description too.
Yeah. Did you say you'd love my description?
I would.
Yeah. The way I describe it is really similar. Everything, to your point, and the way I love using nature, like if we look to nature, everything from the trees to the water to the air to everything is vibrating at all times. And just like why grounding is so beneficial when we walk on the ground, it literally vibrationally grounds us. Yeah. And science says, principles of physics, is everything's in movement. And that now correlating over to our bodies, we can actually harness the energy when we learn how to harness that energy to shift. And it's, to your point, we're not healing, but we're helping through energy, helping guide someone's cellular energy to shift so that their body can shift into healing. Because often, like if we look at chakras or if we look at meridians, if chakras, for example, if our chakras aren't off, let's say our throat chakra is blocked, right? Someone may have different things show up, a hard time with voice if it's more emotionally based, or a lot of coughing, a lot of something going on. If we can clear that chakra just through bringing in the energy to it and circulating whatever is going on in there, so it's breaking through and then allowing everything to circulate and flow again, then we, to your point, allow the natural healing process within the body to then flow all the way through. Did that sound
perfect?
Yeah. The one thing I want to mention, though, along with all of this for anyone watching, to me, energy healing is my primary energy healing. I'm going to digress on that. Using Dr. Christy and harnessing emotional cellular healing coupled with energy healing is my primary of what I choose for my healthcare. But I just want to say the clause that this is a piece of the whole healthcare system, and everyone should just make sure that you're consulting with your regular Western practitioner and make sure that if this can be used within your care, that is an option you can look at. It's just what I want to say out there. So, okay, back to the science. I think that it's beneficial to just mention there are a lot of different types of energy healing. And I wasn't as familiar with all of them. I'm mostly familiar with Reiki and theta healing, of course, now. The things that and I'm going to look at my notes so I don't get this wrong, but some other ones that I am not as in tune to, and Dr. Christy, please chime in if you're in tune to any of these, is other practices are pranic healing, crystal healing, quantum healing, and qigong, which again are all, correct me if I'm wrong, but really in different modalities, balancing either the chakras, the meridians, or the otherwise chi throughout the body.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you, and if not, that's okay. Can you explain chi?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So qi is the term used in acupuncture, Chinese Oriental medicine, to describe the energy that flows through the body in different meridians. And so the qi flows in different directions. It also flows in a different order, so to speak. So like there's a 24-hour clock in Chinese medicine where each meridian, each organ system essentially is in its highest energy at different times of day. So for instance, 3 to 5 a.m. is a lung window, where the lung is then detoxifying and clearing itself out during those hours. 5 to 7 a.m. is large intestine based. I believe 7 to 9 a.m. is stomach. 11 to 1 is gallbladder. 1 to 3 a.m. is liver. So like we can go through and just at any different times of day, the chi is flowing through those different meridians through the 24-hour clock, cleansing and kind of rebooting. I'm not thinking of the right word. Resetting. Thank you. Something like that. Redoing something in that system to provide more energy. And so, especially like, to kind of bring perspective to this and what this means in real life is, who do we know that wakes up every day like clockwork at 2:30 in the morning and can't get back to sleep? I hear this constantly. It's like, okay, well, I'm waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I can't get back to sleep. If it's always the same time, I always look to that 24-hour clock. What meridian is that in that's likely disrupted? So that's one of the first ways that I kind of connect that into that big picture. But yeah, that's essentially what the chi is to me. It's the energy that's flowing through your body in any sense. And it's just, that is the term that's given to it in Oriental medicine.
Got it. Okay. So hi, Bill. Thanks for joining us. And guys, feel free to drop any questions. If you have any questions about energy healing, emotional cellular healing, we'd love to hear them and answer if we can. Okay, let's stay on both. I mean, again, chakras, meridians, both ki, chi, all key pieces of keeping the energy and the flow going. And we talked about unblocking through energy where there's blockages. Speaking to the meridians, are there tips or suggestions that you can give to anyone of unblocking their own meridians? Like, are there tips that you give people that someone can just use to really determine, okay, something's off, I feel it, what's something I can do from home to kind of gauge that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't do that a ton except one-on-one because people are so different and so unique, and whatever's going on with them, I can't usually give out just like a random piece of advice. However, there is one that I can provide for people. So there is an acupuncture point right underneath your clavicle, so like right at your collarbone. Right underneath that, though, you'll feel like a little bit of a soft spot. So if anybody watching is feeling they can kind of like play with themselves right there, if it's sore, that likely indicates that you should rub it, basically. Those are acupuncture points. They're kidney 27. In my work, they tend to relate to what I call neurologic disorganization. So if you have one of the days where you just feel fuzzy, where you're driving around and you turn right when you should turn left, and you're just discombobulated, and you're like, why do I feel so off today? Rub these points. The kidney meridian is the primary mobilizer and the primary initiator of the movement of chi. And so if your kidney energy is depleted, then the rest of your meridians are likely going to be depleted as a result of that. So not that any one meridian is more important than the others, because they all have their place, of course. But if we were to say that one is the most important, the kidney is the primary one. So that's why it's most helpful to make sure you're drinking lots of water and that you're purifying your system and detoxifying in that way to keep your kidney as healthy as possible, because it's the mobilizer of all the chi through your body. So this right here, kidney 27, if you want to rub those points, if you just kind of feel like you're having an off day, sometimes it can recenter you in a quick way.
Cool. And we can I'll put in the chat, if not yet today, definitely over the next couple of days, just the chart that you were referring to.
Yeah.
That just kind of breaks down not only just what the meridians are, when they might show up, but also what are some of the things you might feel if that meridian, that was very interesting to dial into, okay, large intestine meridian, here's what you might be feeling. And then also here's some things you can try to rebalance it in a specific meridian.
For sure. I mean, all these organ systems, all these meridians also relate to different emotions as well. And so not even talking about like the physical symptoms that one might experience or one might be manifesting as a result of an imbalance in the meridian systems, you could be experiencing certain emotions that then disrupt the meridians, or vice versa. So like in the same example of, waking up in the middle of the night, liver time is related to anger very frequently. And so if you're harboring a lot of anger or resentment, you might wake up in the liver gallbladder time. If you're having a lot of grief because you've just lost a loved one, you might be waking up between 3 and 5 a.m. So like there's a lot of emotional correlations between all these things as well.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk about chakras for a minute. And just a quick tip for anyone that I use with chakras and now in bringing it into practice as well. If you feel off, and when it comes to chakras, the simple art of just sitting in peace and focusing on each of your chakras going all the way up, and just putting even your hands of energy and focusing on love towards each of those, just that in and of itself, and just bringing energy, can yourself open up and unlock that blockage of whatever you have going on. And I can tell you from personal experience, it can really shift your energy if you're having an off moment, and just that simple act.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah. Okay. Talking about energy. Now, for me, when I look at energy healing and whole, when my body's off, when I'm depleted, when something's going on, I am more apt to bump into an anxious state, bump into a other state.
Yeah.
What are some other benefits of keeping your energy? So we know energetic balance in check will help you better. I assert that it will allow you to better be calm of your emotions and manage your state more effectively. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, I was confused as to what was the statement, what's the question?
Yeah, no, that's why it was the question. So question is when we are in a better energetic state, meridians are flowing right, our chakras are going right, it allows us to manage our emotions more effectively. In turn, anxious moment comes up, again, staying on the anxiety that I mentioned originally, different things come up. We are more prepared to deal with them when our body is and energy is moving in the right direction.
100%. Yeah. I mean, most people can relate and understand that in the sense of why sometimes a stupid little insignificant thing bothers us and like sets us off for the whole rest of the day. Whereas other times something really big and catastrophic could happen and we're like, all right, it sucks, but we can deal with it.
Yeah. because our energy's off. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're triggered. Okay, so what are some other tips you have for anyone watching outside of the healings and the energy modalities? Are there other tips that you have that people can use to keep their energy up and overall state up?
Yeah. This to me is so person specific. These are the things that I recommend for people every single time I see patients in my office is
Sure.
do what works for you, right? Because for one person, meditation, like a formal sitting down and meditation doesn't feel right, but going for a walk feels right. And so anything that I find connects you with nature or with the energy of the universe or something along those lines, it's just whatever you connect with that makes most sense to you. I like all of it. Personally, I will sit and meditate quietly. I will sit outside. I'll walk. I'll exercise. I'll listen to music. Like there's thousands of things that anybody can do. Even journaling can get you into that kind of state sometimes. Surrounding yourself with the right people energetically is, of course, of vital importance, because if you're surrounding yourself with people or even music or words and language and those sorts of things that are depleting, you yourself are going to find yourself in a lower vibrational state, and then therefore harder to handle life's events that come up for us. So those are my basic tips of just like, take care of yourself, take care of your foundation, do what feels right to make sure that you're enhancing your energy in any way possible. Surround yourself with the right groups and people and communities. And I think most people, given those options, will find themselves in a higher energy state most of the time.
Yeah.
And shit always happens. I mean,
shit happens. Agreed. Yeah.
This is not to say that we don't always have bad days. It happens.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that you really hit it, and you've mentioned it before. We've talked about it before. The foundational principles are always key.
Yeah.
Drinking and being hydrated, eating the right foods for the most, getting out in nature, getting exercise, moving more.
Yeah.
All will help us to not get our energy out of balance.
Right.
Inadvertently, right?
Yes.
But you mentioned something I want to come back to is the people that we are around and the energy that they vibe. Can you explain or talk briefly, or any tips that you have about why we get impacted, like the comment about the person walked in the room and lit everybody up, or the person walked in the room and drained the energy out of it? Can you explain that concept?
Oh, yeah. So I think it's a two-way street, right? So there's the person who has that beautiful high energy that just lights up a room, that comes in. You then yourself, as being in the room when that person comes in, has to be receptive enough to that energy to allow yourself to be influenced by it, right? And the contrary is true, that if somebody comes in with a negative vibe, that you then have to be in a state that you allow that to bring you down. So nothing's 100% either way.
Agreed.
That says some people just have a really amazingly powerful energy on either side and have a stronger powered influence in one direction or another. We all have those people in our lives that we are around and we just feel like it's an energy suck, right? And so when we have those people in our lives, I just always recommend, do some extra work on yourself before you go into a situation with that individual. Ground a little bit more, do all those foundational pieces so that you can go into that interaction with the highest resiliency possible so you can handle it at your best, and then re-clear and re-ground again afterwards, and just kind of do your best in those situations. But yeah, I mean, those phenomenon are absolutely real. And I do find that the more self-aware we are, the more our energy can be balanced regardless of what's happening around us.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Christy. And to me, it also comes back to what we talked about earlier, is just like everything's vibrating around us, we're vibrating. Mm-hmm. And that's how quickly it can get impacted just by who we're around. The other thing that and being who I am, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, but I think we have the opportunity to, in those moments that we sense someone's maybe vibrating at a little bit lower of a frequency than we are, to just call love over them. I think that sometimes we can focus on the what isn't right or the problem or the negative, Whereas if we just focus on maybe that person's having a bad day, or just focusing on giving that person love, vibrationally, you guys, as however it sounds, it actually can help them increase their vibe, and they may need it.
Yeah.
It's just that calling over positive over somebody else. So
yes, if they're open to receiving it.
True. So, okay, cool. Benefits. What are the benefits of energy healing?
You want a story?
I want a story. I do. I love stories.
All right. So you know this story. So this story involves me.
Yay.
2 days ago, I was outside playing with my crazy kids, and they set up this little obstacle course. They set up these 2 crates one on top of each other. And so before they got to the crates, they had to like zigzag through the chairs and then jump over the little water table and then climb up on the milk crates and then go down and then jump over something else and go through the swing and touch the shed. And they were timing each other on how fast they could go. And I'm like, I could do this. I work out. So I had my son time me, and I start going through everything, and I jump over and I get on the milk crate. And as soon as I get on the little crates that are stacked up, they weren't stable. They were not stacked right. And so I felt my ankle start to go a little bit. The thing started to topple over, and I fell. I sat on the ground for a good 10 minutes and going, because I also heard a crack in my ankle, and I sat there and went, okay, hope it's not broken. Hope it's not broken. And so I sat there for a little while, was able to put weight on it. After a little bit of trying to self-diagnose as what I do, right? I figured out this was not like a normal inversion sprain. Like, I've done that dozens and thousands of times in my life. I played volleyball. So like, I know a normal inversion sprain is when your ankle goes inward. That's not what happened. This was like a high ankle sprain, which I've never had before. And so I kind of was looking it up and palpating myself and figuring out, I was like, yes, this is definitely what this is. All of the research online says this kind of injury takes anywhere between 6 weeks and 3 months to heal. I'm walking pretty much normally today.
Yay.
I did a whole lot of stuff. I gave myself a lot of different homeopathic remedies. I put some of my own energy into it. I called my little bestie that's on this call right now and made sure that, and she just did some amazingly beautiful work long distance for me, throwing some energy to it. And I got treated by a colleague yesterday, and today I can basically walk normally. There's still some pain. There's still some healing that has to take place. I mean, there was a really big injury that took place, but I have it that I'll be able to get back to my normal workout routine by next week.
Yay.
So
that's awesome.
That's my exciting story.
Yeah. Okay. So
it works.
Yeah. Let's use that as an example and explain why it worked, why it works. So it works because we're putting, like we mentioned, but again, using this as an example, you had pain, you had inflammation, putting the energy behind it to not only pull out the information, but also to break everything up cellularly through energy and calling energy to it is essentially what's allowing it to heal quicker than what the normal process would be. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, almost. Because one thing I think I even told you is that the second day, and even today, quite frankly, it feels more inflamed than it did the first day. Yeah. But inflammation is important in the healing process. Right. Now, inflammation gets a bad rap because we all know that chronic inflammation causes all these chronic diseases, and that we don't even need to get into right now. But in the event of an injury, inflammation is how it heals. Yeah. And so I think through the energy work that we all did, we channeled it to reawaken the system and say, get this stuff to the area of injury now so that it can heal at a faster rate.
Yeah.
We opened up the pathways. We removed all the obstacles. We took out all the crap that was impeding the flow of what's naturally meant to occur.
Yes. Yay. I love those kind of stories.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, what other benefits? I can think of a few just as I think to my own healing. And again, being passionate about mental wellness and just the overall decreased stress. I mean, combination for me, cellular, emotional, releasing the past, energy healing, and even the repatterning, right? Because that's an important key aspect of this.
Right.
Catching, just making sure everyone's aware when you're letting go of that cellular emotional, if you're keeping the patterns of what's going on in your head and you're not changing that story, you're going to recreate it. And essentially it's not going to go away and it's not going to be as impactful, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was always my missing piece, and that was the one of the many brilliant things that you've brought into my world is that piece. I mean, I've been doing the emotional repatterning and the energy stuff for a while, but it was pretty much not until I met you that you brought into the space that, okay, now you actually have to do something with it, because yeah, we changed it, we broke the pattern, but if you don't change any of your actions along the way, you're just going to recreate a negative pattern.
Right. That's why sometimes we get stuck and we don't move forward.
Yes.
So benefits. I can tell you for me specifically, it has caused me to not have constant all the time anxiety, which is so I'm blessed to be able to say that for me. Anxious moments, yes, but far less frequently than I've ever experienced in my whole life. And just overall calm and patience and overall better health, I would say, for me. Definitely less stress has been a big impactful one for me as well. I assert that knowing all of those things that it's impacted, it's also caused to not, if I would have stayed in a state of constant anxiety, constant self-doubt, constant stress, it could have led to more cancer experiences, other health issues, cardiovascular issues, brain health issues, lung health issues, kidney issues, any number of things if I wouldn't have shifted those. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
So I would assert that in doing the energy healing can also long-term benefit, help alleviate or prevent other longer term, bigger health issues.
Yeah.
Again, this is one piece of a big puzzle.
Yeah.
As you're consulting with your regular
Absolutely.
physician. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that we've all heard stories of people that have healed something that they've had going on through absolutely no medical interventions whatsoever.
Right.
I've seen documentary after documentary of people healing cancer, healing autoimmune diseases just by going within and clearing their energy and putting themselves in a healing state. And those things are, I mean, they're amazing. And medicine recognizes that they happen, but they have no words to explain it. And they just say, yeah, spontaneous remissions happen all the time, whether it's faith-based, whether it's energy, like whatever it is that you want to call it, or however you've done it, they occur all the time.
Right.
Which shows that it's possible.
Agreed. Okay. So other benefits, and I want to come back to, I don't want to step over it. So a couple for anyone else interested in continuing the journey of learning all of what we're talking about tonight, a couple strong things I'd recommend. A book called Energy Medicine explains it beautifully and also gives a lot of really good individual recommendations of how to clear your energy on your own and just start working through small tips of learning this modality, of keeping your energy balanced and in state. I would also highly recommend, it was recently recommended to me, and it was a great documentary on a movie called Heal. Great documentary just about energy healing and whole and the benefits. There's also another good one called Superhuman. So all of those, and I'll put them in the notes as well, so you can refer back to them. Other benefits, and I had to pull up a list of the benefits just to give everyone kind of more perspective, but you know, science says and examples say that it can improve strength and flexibility, benefits for circulation, digestive function, cellular spinal alignment, which I should have figured that one, but I didn't. Improve balance, nervous system, lung function, improved memory, concentration, focus, calm, sounder sleep. So there's definitely a plethora of benefits towards it.
One thing I could even add, I can't remember for the life of me what practice this is, but I want to say it's something with relationship to Buddhism or something where through meditation one can control your own heart rate or your own respiration rate and like bring them down to a practical like near dead level where like you slow all your body processes down to virtually nothing. You put it almost like in a hibernation state. Like I said, I can't remember all the details of it. I've also heard of people going under surgery with no anesthetic whatsoever, and they just through energy healing put themselves in a state of anesthetic, basically. Yeah. I think a lot of that is hypnosis based, and something like that is like it's all really amazing things, what the power of the body can do when channeled in the right direction.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned, backing up, Wim Hof, I think, is one that I think of when I think of breathing techniques and being able to super heal, and just even, I mean, he has some major accomplishments with even the sustainability of being in cold weather or in cold water with the work that he's done.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say unbelievable because it's clearly believable because it's been done, but it's really amazing.
Agreed. Cool. All right. We are on our final minutes. Wow, that went fast.
Right?
What an amazing conversation. And any final tips for anyone that you would suggest or recommend for people wanting to delve into this energy healing journey?
I mean, I would just actually tell people, contact either one of us and we could kind of steer you in the right direction. I mean, I've got a vast network of practitioners that practice all over the country, all over the world, quite frankly. I could refer you to somebody that might resonate best with your energy. We both do stuff long distance to help anybody out. So whatever we can do to help people, I mean, that's kind of why we're here.
Yes, agreed with all of that. The things that I would add are just that trust your body and trust what you need, and don't give up on yourself, and just know that if you're coming up against the road to say nothing's going to work, nothing has worked, that doesn't mean the end. That just means maybe different questions. So like Christy said, reach out to either one of us. We both have different things that we focus on, or if we're not the right people for you, we'll get you focused with the right people. But just know you can thrive in life, and you can be happy and energetic and get better, closer to balance than whatever you're feeling right now. And it may take time, and it may take work, and it may take focus, but if you're focusing on it, you can get there. So yeah. And be kind to yourself always along the way, because those are always my final thoughts.
Yes, be kind to yourself, because like we said already, healing is messy.
Healing is messy.
It doesn't always look like sunshine and rainbows.
Yes, agreed. Well, guys, thank you everyone who has joined us. Keep keeping topics in front of us, because we want to keep topics in front of you that you want to hear about. And we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for watching, guys.